Other than that, there's a lot of things you can do over here. So as far as collecting information, all the details show up right there. Yeah, Arthur, so if your security's licensed, then the one that feeds in automatically is your TFA Connect. Correct. That's the one that'll feed in there automatically for you. Under the account information for details section, this is just the basic stuff that you would normally be getting. So I didn't put a lot of information in here. I put in his name and a phone number. But if I've met with him and now I have some more things to add, I can click on any one of these pencils. All these fields open up for me to edit now. So status, I could say if this is an active client, if this is an inactive client, or if it's a prospect, something like that. So right now he's just kind of a prospect to me. I can do that. Put in his gender. I'll throw in a birth date as well. I think I have a bunch of April, so I can throw out maybe a early May there. Then say, so anything you wanted to add, then just save it. So very easy to go back and add information and build these out after if you just upload basic information into a big template, a lot of times what I tell agents to do is if you have a group of 100 or so people on a spreadsheet that you want to put into Salesforce of your existing clients, go ahead and import them for the basic information and then just come in here and start to build these out with the files that you have on them so that you kind of get used to where all that stuff goes and you get used to kind of looking at it. Financial accounts is the next one over. This is where a big one, you'd be logging all of their current policies that they have with you. So any insurance policies, any VAs or TransAlpha accounts, anything like that they have, you can log the account numbers, what kind of account it is, open dates, all that kind of stuff in here. You could even attach a policy statement or something like that to this place right here. So that's always in one place and you're able to keep track of that. Short little side note on this, what's kind of silly is that, we've had a system like this now for a while and we've been trying to think in different ways to get people to start using it. And really it's just about, introduction to it and how you can start using it. But our friends in New York, or if you even have any New York clients, there was the New York insurance commissioner came out and said that, any insurance carrier and also the agent of any client that has any insurance or premium-based thing like that in New York, announcing that they're able to kind of curtail some of their premiums because of the COVID situation, things like that. That needs to come from both places. So the carrier has to reach out to the client, and the agents were also required to either send an email or send out a letter with a specific language that was given to them to all of their clients that had insurance products in New York. So we had a lot of agents that have been in the business for a while that did not have any kind of a system like this, calling WFG, calling the carriers and trying to make sure they hit all the carriers to get a list of all of their clients and the addresses and things like that. And so, very quickly you realize the importance of having all of your things in one place where you'd be able just to very simply go and run a report of all of your clients with term life insurance policies that are New York residents, stuff like that. So the more information you put in here, the more you're going to be able to get out of it. But at minimum, that's the kind of stuff that you want to be able to have in the system. Yep. Yeah. So Arthur, your question there, can you then break down your clients into, insurance or securities or long-term care, what kind of product they have? When you go in here to create one of these policies, it has a lot of different product types and all those kind of things. Any of the fields that are in here, you can basically run a report that filters by that field. And the kind of next step, once we do the introduction into Salesforce, the kind of next step is the how-to on reports and dashboards. And that's something we're actually working on right now, putting up on my WFG. And then also something that I help out a lot of agents with. After we do these introductions, agents that start to use it will reach out to me and we do kind of an intro into the reports showing you how to build those as well. But that's the financial accounts. Next one over is relationships. So under relationships, this is where I mentioned, if there was a family, they could all their names would show up right here. Or if you set them up into some other kind of, like a church group or they were part of your softball team or whatever, put those under here. And they can belong to multiple accounts or multiple groups at the same time. It's just a way to kind of feed them in. Financial goals is this one right here. You can list out as many goals as you want. So it's pretty easy. It just asks you for, the name of the goal, the value that they want to have saved up, and what they currently have saved up towards that goal. And then maybe the date that they would want to complete that by. So that kind of stuff shows up in there. Oops, another question come in. Anthony, so any plans to integrate databases with providers? Give us the ability to run a report that shows how much money under management. Yeah, so the next big step, one of the things that we've asked for, Victor Sanchez as well has asked for from the Salesforce team and from the people building this out, is we need a hierarchy view, because right now you can only see your direct clients and anything that's direct to you in Salesforce. But the second one is getting all of your existing business feeding into this financial accounts section. So that is a big one that we're working on. Those are in the plans. Definitely something that'll make it a lot easier for agents to use for sure. If you log in and all of a sudden all of your clients are in here with every policy that they have with you, with their account number, the vendor and the type of product and things like that, that'll make it a lot easier to use and run those reports. So yes, that is something that's in the plans as well. They're also partnering with Allbridge. So if you have an Allbridge subscription, once that does go live, you'll even be able to see like current values of your securities and things like that. So more information when that goes live. That I don't know when that'll happen. Maybe by the end of the year, but those are kind of things to think about. The big one though to kind of cover as well is the related tab. So under related, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't even see you guys had some people raising their hands. I don't know if you guys have your questions answered there.
Wes, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Regarding that, WFG and Transamerica inputting all your clients. So does that mean if you're using another CRM, the only thing you would have to really move over is notes and any documents that you save for that client, correct? Because if the accounts are already in there and they're updated, there's probably a few other fields that we'd probably have to import, but it would be a lot less work of importing stuff from another CRM if TFA and WFG are automatically going to put those accounts in there for you.
Correct. Yeah, and so hopefully, again, there's no timeline on when your existing business is going to feed in. The big thing they're trying to do right now is just make a more all-encompassing import tool that can import notes and can bring in a lot of those other things for you automatically, and just to make that process easier, so you don't have to wait until we get around to getting all of the existing stuff fed in there. But yeah, that's exactly right. Once that's all feeding in, then all you have to do is come into this, and that's a good segue into this section. So under the related tab is always where there's notes and files. As far as that is, the files to upload and things like that are always under the related section in here. I did see there were a few people with their hands up that did the raise the hands. So I don't know if Odie and Charisma and Arthur, I think, have answered a couple of questions there, but I don't know if there's a way for you guys to type them into the chat and I could kind of address those. But go ahead and do that and let me know. I can go through those. So again, it's another one of those areas to gather information in here. And so that note that I made earlier, so how we met, and then just threw in a couple of things there. And then like you're saying, if you have a bunch of notes from Redtail or your other CRM, this is where you can kind of, what I know some agents are doing is copying all of them and just putting them under one note and titling that note like, Redtail notes or something. And then you can make new notes going forward out of here. Or putting them all into a Word document and then uploading that as a file is another way to do that. So you still have record of everything. You can always go back and reference it. Files here, you can bring in, this could be a picture or an Excel spreadsheet or a PDF or a Word document. So that you could really any kind of file you can bring in here. And there's no limit on the amount of files you can bring in either, which is nice. And then also the last big thing that's under this related tab is the opportunities. So that's really where once you get a lot of the details in there and then opportunities. So any of the people that fed in here automatically from IGO for you, they would have also had a corresponding opportunity created. So you'd actually see one under here for them already. So that's kind of, the related tab has a lot of useful information. The middle ones are just if you have that stuff, but this is really where we're going to track those opportunities and see what you have for those people. So let's say this is that New York client. Again, Harry's someone, again, I've kind of jumped around on him, but let's say he's one of those clients that's a New York resident that I know that I was going to talk to about life insurance. I could come in here and start the process. And in New York, what they're having to do is go up here to create insurance opportunity. If you're securities licensed, you'll have the investment option. And then you'll also have recruiting opportunity. And so you could be tracking multiple opportunities for the same person at the same time. And so for this one, we're just going to do an insurance opportunity. I can go through, I have to name it. So my format for naming it is put his first name, last name, the type of policy or type of product or whatever you're working with, and then the month that I started working on, or like the date, something like that. Just so if I'm looking at a whole list of opportunities, it makes sense as far as what I'm looking at there. Close date, I always just push mine off like 4 or 5 weeks. You can choose to make the close date when you plan on meeting with that client, maybe getting things signed or whatever it is. You can always go back and change that close date as well and move it out. So if you go past the close date, it doesn't like lock you out or anything like that. It's just a way to kind of keep you organized. And then resident state, again, because of that New York requirement, they have resident state here. And all 50 should be in now. It was funny, we actually had an agent reach out that was trying to do a case for a Wyoming resident. And Wyoming wasn't actually in here, so we had to do something else. But we got everything added now, hopefully. I'm sitting in Denver, so I'll just say Harry's a Colorado resident. I could then add the face amount. I could add a description, and I could also add some kind of a term life here. If you're going to do a product type, only do one product type at a time. Again, every application, every different product you'd recommend, you'd want a separate opportunity for, or else it'll confuse the system when you go in there to do it. So save this. And now it'll show up under opportunities right here. And again, you'd have multiple opportunities here that you're tracking all at the same time. So I'm going to give it a second there, see if you guys have any questions on any of that stuff before I click into the opportunity and start kind of walking through that. Because that's where a lot of the things that are gone in. And that's also, I know, where one of the questions as far as IGO is in here as well. So I'll click on this now. Take me into the opportunity. And it looks similar to that opportunity that we saw before. I'll try to get rid of this here. Looks similar to that opportunity we had before as far as the stages go for recruiting. So I can do those same kind of things right here. But the difference is in this one, now I have all these sales tools under here. So as I go through this process, we'll click on some of these and show you what some of these sales tools do. And then once you get to application, there's actually a link to do IGO. And I think, Michael, if it was you were saying you're having issues when you're trying to put one of those in and it wasn't letting you kind of. A couple of best practices. If there is an opportunity that you're opening up, make sure you stay logged into your MyWFG. You can see I got timed out on mine. So I've just gotten in the habit that as soon as I open up an opportunity, I go back out to my MyWFG, I log back in. That'll reestablish the connection there. And then also clearing out your cookies makes it so you can kind of move through this a lot smoother. It's amazing how many times that clears up issues of just like what you were saying, where it's not letting you move on to the next section or something like that. So those are two best practices to keep in mind. We have extended out the amount of time before MyWFG logs you out. So I went from 20 minutes to 30 minutes. We're also trying to work on making this like flash like your bank would do. So if you ever logged into your computer and you log into your bank account, when you go into another window, and this one will start to flash on you when you have like 60 seconds left. It'll say, do you want more time? So we have that little feature built in there. They do have a little pop-up window that says, do you want more time? But it's not flashing yet. So they're working on that. So that way you'll be able to kind of stay logged in there. So under here, needs assessment. This is really, again, what you're trying to do is just make that first set or first stage of the sale. So you're trying to figure out, this is where you'll be doing your F&As, all of your kind of info gathering as far as that sale goes. And you can see over here under sales tools, I do have a link to the F&A and my WFG, but I also have a link to this client profiler, which is the new F&A. This is the requirement in New York now. This is what they have to use in place of an F&A, but it's an option for the rest of us. So all of us could go in and create this. What I'd recommend you do to kind of get used to it is go into accounts and make one for yourself, and then maybe go into the client profiler and fill one of these out for yourself as well. And you can kind of see this whole process as you go through. The other things that you could do, again, the idea behind a sales opportunity more than anything else, as far as the recruiting and things like that, is under the sales opportunity, what you're trying to do is build a very clear picture of how this sale came to fruition. You never know when you're going to have to go back and explain, how, this is the illustrations, these are the times we met, things like that. Clients' situations change down the line. Something could come up and all of a sudden they think that this insurance policy was the worst decision they ever made. And you have to be able to go back and show that you did your due diligence on the front end. And that's really where this comes into play. So going under related and adding in any notes and uploading any files like the F&A and illustrations, going under activity and logging your calls, logging any events or meetings. You can also set tasks. Again, anytime there's an activity tab, you at least have those options. So this just really helps paint that picture for you when you're going through and doing it. So I'll go ahead and click here again. The only place you can access this client profiler is through an opportunity and either needs assessment or recommendation stage. Yep, exactly. So put all those kind of things in here. Now client profiler, if I click on this, this is a link to the new RightBridge tool. And you guys might have experience with RightBridge for the FIA comparison, but this is now expanding to insurance and variable contracts and really anything that we do. This is going to be our new suitability process. Excuse me, apologize. All the trees are blooming out here. My allergies are starting to kind of flare up a little bit. You can see that his name, it fed in his age. I've got all those things here. And then I'd go through and I'd do all these general things. So what is the client needing? What are they looking at? And then it's going to ask me for household income sources, their dependents, any current assets. So you can give kind of a general breakdown of assets, or you can get really detailed with the assets as well and say their current financial accounts, any annuity holdings, real estate and other holdings as well. You could go into, debts and liabilities, life insurance holdings, existing, things they have that'll reduce their need, all the way out to their retirement goals. So how much of their income that they want to retire with. Education, asset allocations, what are they contributing, Social Security, risk tolerance, all the way through, and you build this really cool little plan, and then go to view client needs. And I have one that I already made that I'm going to show you. What's cool about this, you can always go back and reference your old ones. So I'll do that one. I've got one made for Jason. Yeah, Arthur. So there are a couple of different ways. Your question there in the chat, can you add statements from providers? You can add those into, once you build out their financial account and their profile. I was mentioning there's a section to add files there. That's one way. Or just to their actual account profile as well. Either way, there are definitely, anytime you see the add files, you can upload those in there. Because again, this is your secure database. So Jason's, I've already gone through, I've already answered all these questions fairly generally. So if I view client needs at the bottom, it gives me this cool little report. Then now I can look at, and anything in green is kind of an area of opportunity for me as an agent. So there's, areas of need in life insurance planning. You can see this little green bar across the bottom goes all the way across. There's not very diversified in this portfolio, so there might be some room for me to help out there or just some explanations. Same thing with accumulation planning. He's younger, so we're not necessarily worried about retirement income planning yet. But then also debt management, I didn't enter any debts, so that's why these show up in orange and red, because these aren't necessarily needs right now at this time. So that's kind of where that comes from. So if I download this report, it goes into a PDF format, and then each one of these has its own little page that will then kind of explain the more details part of it right here. So it'll say, based on his age and the fact that, recommended life insurance is 12 times a person's income, annual income, plus debts and things like that. That's where we come up with that need right there. And then you could download that report. I would come back here and I would put it, again, under related as always where the files are. I would upload that in here. So now I've got that first step done. So then if I mark this stage as complete, so to move from here to here, I would mark this stage as complete. Now I'm in the recommendation stage. And you can see I have some sales forms. This is mainly for our New York friends because they have some forms that they just switched over to e-signature, which is cool. So you can send those out, or they still had 2 forms they had to get wet signed for a while, but now they switched those over to e-signature. So little things there. They'll be adding more of those into the library as well. But now under sales tools, I have that client profiler is still here. So if I need to go back and edit anything, I can do that. But I can talk about, there's the Morningstar, TransAlpha, the product guide, Transamerica illustrations, Crump, Everest, Nationwide, Prudential. So just links to all those sites. So you can go run your illustrations or get the information for the wholesaler or whatever it is if you need to kind of learn about that a little bit more. So that's the sales tools under there. Again, I'd come back, I'd upload illustrations and brochures and things like that. So you always know what product you sold them. And then from there, I can go into mark this stage is done. You can kind of already see where I'm going. And now if I mark that stage as complete, I'm in the application phase. So if it is something that's in IGO, so if it's a Transamerica or Nationwide insurance application that I'm trying to do, I could actually open up IGO right in this window right here. So it might take a second to load. I could open up Firelight. Firelight is a link just to the version in my WFG. So Firelight's not syncing anything in here yet, like IGO is. But if it was an IGO application, I need to delete out my cookies. I can see it's going kind of slow. But it will load in here. You've got the birth date that all fed over. If I choose the product, so Colorado, I said this was a term. Find available products. So then I pick one of these products. And then if I select it, then this will open up that application for me and I can go in and I can fill it out and, save my progress, all this kind of stuff. So, you can go through, save it just like you would in any other way, see your case information, all this kind of stuff. So you could submit it all the way through Salesforce if you want. But then that way, anything that you put into the IGO system will feed back into Harry's profile. And then let's say I was going to go do an IUL next through Nationwide, then all of those details will then feed into that application as well. So it saves me a little bit of time when I do that second application. So really cool. This is where a lot of that stuff goes into. Under the details section, you can see there is a suitability review section. So if I would have marked New York as the client resident state, I'd actually have to go through and fill the rest of this out. But right now, we don't have to worry about the rest of this. It did go ahead and it put in the name of the case. If I would have picked and actually filled out that first part of the application, it would tell me, what the name of the carrier was and the product and everything in here. And you kind of see, what stage it's in, things like that. So you can really follow along through as long as it's IGO, and then hopefully soon the rest of our carriers as well. Yeah, Arthur, so this is actually the compliance review section now for New York. So right now, not for anybody else, but as we go forward, as DocuPaste gets loaded in here, this will be kind of the system that we're going to be using for that. But as this starts to become the norm, you can see you would have to come in here. You'd have to put the provider and the product that you chose, and then recommendation color. And what this comes from is under this RightBridge tool. Once I have this report, anybody can do this right now. But you're going to go into the next step, which would be select life insurance and annuities. We can't do this yet because if I select life insurance, for instance, only New York products show up right now. But you would go through all of this and do a few more questions, and then it would actually show me a list of all of the term products that are available for that client. And it would rate them on a green, yellow, or red basis. And so if I picked a product and it shows me that it's green, I would download that report. I'd come and I'd put it back under the related section, and I'd mark that I chose a green product here. So if I do that, if it's green, it actually bypasses suitability. And then they just come back and do a spot check. So suitability does come back and look in what you have in here. Nobody else will be looking at those. It would just be, compliance for in the opportunity. They just check out what you're putting in there.
Wes?
Yes.
It's Pat. We need to wrap up.
Yep.
Angela just wants to make a couple of closing comments, and we got to wrap up. But this was fantastic. I'm sure it was quite eye-opening for most folks. Is there any just closing comments you want to make?
Yeah, definitely. So just remember, you can shoot me an email. I do want to show you one more thing. If you go back into your My WFG and you just search for Salesforce, it'll take you to a landing page, Salesforce Wealth Management. This can be a resource for you as you're going through. So there are some training videos, the mobile app instructions, and then this training guide and walkthrough are just PDFs, what we just talked about. So as a closing, that's just a good thing. Shoot me an email with any questions, or go here to get some helpful resources as you're kind of learning it on your own as well. So, but thanks again, guys. I appreciate you having me on here. So.
For sure.
Hey, I want to, can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
First of all, that was awesome. I mean, really good. We really appreciate you being on the call with us today. The one thing I wanted to mention is that I knew this was going to be a hot topic. So we have booked Wes twice. We've got him coming back in 2 weeks on May 11th. That's a Tuesday, right, Wes? Do I have the date right? Because I know we scheduled it. We're pretty stoked about that, because I know that, what this guy is, what he's up, this information and what he's talking about, this is the future, right? So May 11th, mark your calendars. It's a Tuesday. We'll have Wes back.
Angela, May 12th is the Tuesday I got.
Oh, sorry. Okay, see, that's why I needed to double check. It's Tuesday, May 12th. Wes will be back, and he'll go over some of the stuff he went over today for anyone who hasn't seen it, but he'll also maybe build off of this presentation a little bit. For those of you who are going to have a lot of good questions by then. But that last resource you showed, I think, is the key, that it's available to us right now, And when you think about, imagine what you would have to pay if you were just some agent on a corner that tried to get access to something this comprehensive, along with everything else that we have on our portfolio. It is quite remarkable.